Welcome back to Problem Solver Politics. I am your host, along with Cody the Oracle.
Hey everyone, how you doing?
That was pretty smooth.
Oh, it's okay.
That was a smooth intro right there. Anyway, we're not sure if the mass media is up to its old establishment shenanigans again, or if Andrew Yang has a little bit of a problem introducing himself to the American political electorate, because there's a lot of headlines now about him being the handout candidate that are wildly misrepresenting what UBI and what I believe his freedom dividend, his flagship proposal, is. So, Cody, can you tell our audience what's going on and what trends we have noticed?
Yeah, well, I would say this video kind of got spurred from. I'm going to throw the headline on screen right now. We covered the story already, but this headline stuck out today. It says Elon Musk supports, quote, free cash handout, end quote, presidential candidate Andrew Yang. Now, it seems, one, like maybe the most unfair way of representing what it is he's exactly proposing possible. It's like the free handout instead of saying, a advocate of universal basic income or $1,000 a month, or even the guy who wants to give you money. But that aside, though, it kind of led to an interesting question that I've seen other people following the Andrew Yang campaign kind of talk about, and I think it's a good point. And they say it feels like everything else, because I'll show it up on screen right now. Andrew Yang has over 100 policies on his website, things he's proposing, ideas he likes, stuff along those lines, things he wants to see done. You don't hear about any of these. You hear about the guy who supports the free cash handout, so to speak. Now, other networks have kind of caught on a little bit more. He's just grown more in the polls, so you see him more fairly addressed. But we thought it was a little interesting. We want to talk about, is he not doing a good enough job of explaining he stands for more than just that? Well, I think, honestly, a little bit. I mean, one last thing before I go back to you. I don't know, you can see it on the screen, but seriously, think about this, man. He has 3 pillars, 3 tenets. He's 3 policies, right? 3 big policies. UBI, for sure, freedom dividend. Know about that one. Did I know that Medicare for All and human-centered capitalism were his other 2 big policies? Like, realistically, I follow his stuff. That doesn't come up with any additional level of importance or emphasis compared to anything else. It's UBI and then other stuff. I don't know how you feel, but that is something I am seeing.
Well, I look at this very holistically. Wise, seeing the forest from the trees.
I like how you describe yourself as wise.
Yes.
It's always encouraging.
And humble. But I thank you. I get that there's going to be a lot of, especially in a field so wide, that there's going to be a lot of hyper simplification of people's platforms. I get people are going to say, oh, Marianne Williamson is the crazy orb lady who wants to heal the nation through yoga. Okay. Which is probably a wild misrepresentation of her specific policy proposals, but not necessarily a wild misrepresentation of her aura or her energy. My frustration with this is I keep seeing headlines like this, and we tell people constantly to, quote, Google Andrew Yang. And then after we use our air quotes telling people to Google Andrew Yang, we get these air quotes. He's a free cash handout person. And I just don't feel like that's a fair representation. And it's not even a fair representation that a well-meaning person could accidentally use if they were hyper simplifying something.
It does sound like perhaps the most unfair way of representing it.
It's and to a certain extent, I kind of like that so many of our Yang gangers are really, progressive and left leaning and Democrat leaning people, so they can kind of see these crappy media tricks that conservatives have put up with for so long actually happening to them all of a sudden. Because
hold on. One thing I got to push you back on there. People point it out all the time, so I want to bring it up. I want to see what you think about this.
Okay.
How many of these same tricks were pulled against Ron Paul when he ran in the
absolutely.
Republican? So I think it's more the establishment as a way of shutting people out, and we're seeing it now happen.
Yeah,
to
Ron Paul.
It happened to other people as well.
Ron Paul, who was wildly articulate, extremely well read, and a very wise person, was painted as crazy Uncle Joe, while crazy Uncle Joe Biden was actually being crazy and being painted as wise. Why? Because Joe Biden is mainstream establishment Democrat. I mean, we just from here on out, audience, please understand, when you see CNBC, NBC, or CNN, any of those traditional broadcast news media outlets, CBS, all of them, you just need to know propaganda, not just for the DNC, propaganda for the establishment Democrat nominee top two. That's it. That's all you're getting, because this is obviously a misrepresentation. And I joked around about calling Marianne Williamson the crazy lady who wanted to heal America through yoga, which is a misrepresentation of her specific policy proposals, but not necessarily a misrepresentation of her spirit. She is a very, very healing person, a very let's all love each other, a very kumbaya person. Okay, so at least with that joking misrepresentation, I'm half right. With this headline right here, they're not even half right. It's not even like they got the spirit of UBI out correctly. It's a gross misrepresentation. And by the people who are supposedly speaking truth to power, you'd think the people speaking truth to power would at least get it half right, but they're not. Why? Because CNBC wants Kamala Harris and or Joe Biden to be the nominee. Therefore, this is literally the soft bigotry of low expectations is just as bad sometimes as the hard bigotry of just plain old bigotry. And the soft bigotry of lampooning legitimate candidates who are serious with serious policy proposals as just free cash handout kids is the soft bigotry of the media.
But what I want to get to, though, because you could say part of it is that the media is, I honestly think part of it comes from the fact that I think it's part that they don't necessarily research everything the way that maybe there's a different standard of research now, because I don't know why. That's one thing.
It's non-existent.
But at the same time, though, I have to admit, man, I just being fair, it's not like Andrew Yang every single time follows up a question, well, I believe in the freedom dividend, and then immediately goes into Medicare for all. And he really does just kind of paint himself as the Asian guy who wants to give you $1,000 a month. He kind of jokes about that, but
because all he's ever is given is the chance to do an elevator pitch.
What I'm saying is it perhaps that because the elevator pitch is always just, I want to give you $1,000 a month, perhaps he's kind of done himself a little bit, not say disservice, but he hasn't done a good enough job of getting across that he means he stands for more than just the UBI. He has other things he wants to get across. I've seen entire interviews where he'll maybe touch on the VAT as a way for paying for UBI a little bit, and then aside from that, he won't talk at all about the fact that UBI is going to be paid for by reducing military spending and also reducing social programs. So it's I do think there's criticism there that he doesn't get it all across as clear as he could, and he leaves room for misinterpretations or, like you said, these kind of unfair openings to slam him. I think it's
why? You have to ask yourself
why. He's an outsider.
Well, it's not just because he's an outsider. They don't give him enough time. And they don't give him enough time not because of any kind of merit, just because they don't like him. It's obvious. He's not their guy. So they don't give him a lot of time. And in the case of Andrew Yang constantly having to shorthand himself and not go into detail, well, that's because he's not given a lot of time. But guess who has a lot of time? The person that wrote the CNBC article. On the debate stage, and when he's talking to these people at the Iowa State Fair and at these straw polls and whatnot, Andrew Yang is given 1 minute. He's given 1 minute to try and dissect 100 policy proposals. It's an absolute joke. But you know who got a whole lot more than 1 minute? The guy that wrote the CNBC article. And it only takes 2 minutes on Andrew Yang's website.
I'm sorry.
Sorry, is it the girl that wrote the CNBC article and now I'm going to get called sexist?
It's Mrs. Catherine Clifford.
Okay, so Catherine Clifford, probably sister of Stephanie Clifford, a.k.a. Stormy Daniels. No, I'm just kidding.
Sure. But, I know it's the dog, right? Big red dog?
That's true, the big red dog. So Catherine Clifford had more than 2 minutes. And my question is, where do these air quotes come from? Any spot in the article where he was actually quoting him as being the free cash handout candidate?
I'm going through. I don't really see anything in particular.
I didn't see anything upon the first cursory read. Do you see anything that I missed because I forgot to mention this?
No.
Okay. So if this were...
I'm going through it right now with us on screen. I don't see it.
A Republican being misrepresented this way by a leftist outlet, we would call it a hit piece. If it were Fox News misrepresenting a Democrat candidate this way, we would call it a hit piece. But since it's the mainstream media and it's a Democrat candidate, we just call it news.
So the word hand does not appear anywhere in this page aside from the headline and then portions of the page where they're advertising this article. So whatever they are quoting, the full quote's not in the article.
These air quotes came out of nowhere because this person obviously has a personal bias. Now, I might be falling victim to the fundamental attribution error here. The quote isn't
in the article.
Yeah, I might be falling victim to the fundamental attribution error here, assuming that CNBC has an agenda. when in reality they might just have had a situation where
NBC's left them off more than anyone though as well. Remember, NBC's been the one network that's been the least fair.
This is a CNBC article, right?
Yeah, but I believe,
which means it's worlds apart. Wink, wink.
Yeah, but you know what I mean. Like, there's been a couple networks that have been particularly bad, and you're right, CNBC, but those are the ones that have been a little bit less fair. Honestly, some of the most fair outlets I've seen for Yang have been like recently The Hill has had some very good coverage of Andrew Yang.
Except for that their polls always had him at 0.
But still, the thing I think is funny is we'll sit down to do a video.
Tucker Carlson at Fox News and Ben Shapiro simply letting him speak at this point. The conservative outlets are the most fair to Yang.
CNN's got some fair coverage of him.
Root. And no, actually no. Here's the top 4.
CNN is covered. He's actually as we record right now, he's on Anderson Cooper. So Anderson Cooper already had an interview with him.
Well, that's because Anderson Cooper is now officially man crushing along with Van Jones.
Oh, really? CNN people. So like I said, CNN is a pretty fair representation.
Individuals. And it doesn't mean they're fair. It just means they're man crushing. Okay, I don't think Van Jones is fair.
I guess you're right.
He's a shill.
Shilling for him doesn't make him fair.
But he's man crushing. All right.
I like it. It's fun.
So anyway, all right, you guys, please.
But hold on, 1 second. I want to get back there before we wrap up. Okay. So, in your opinion, Andrew Yang and his campaign is doing an adequate job of getting across the other things he stands for aside from just UBI? Or would you agree that, you know what, he has kind of I mean, even just these 3 things, dude, he never talks about. I mean, to be frank, Medicare for All is like, oh, wow, that separates you.
I'm glad he doesn't talk about Medicare
it's a
for
waste
All,
of time.
I think it's a stupid idea that is non-strategically
But I would just say,
helpful.
Right, as far as the other candidates on the stage he's debating with or he's running against, they all are basically supporting different forms of this. So yeah, it doesn't separate you, so I get why he doesn't bring it up. Human-centered capitalism, I think this could be much more well fleshed out. I'm just saying that, would you agree that maybe he hasn't done the best job of getting across the other things he stands for? Okay. He really has harped on UBI a lot. And harping on UBI a lot has led to this. Okay,
I would agree that it's not necessarily that he hasn't done a good job. It's that it's definitely not his personality type. Perfect example was the first debates. Well, all the other clowns were performing well in the circus because the circus demands sound bites and interjections and "you're a racist." You know what I'm saying? So they have something to put in their headlines the next day. Since he's not a clown, he didn't do well in the circus, okay? So, yes, I don't think he does very well in those traditional political theater settings, okay? However, I have seen him time and time again very craftily weave the benefits of UBI into all the other conversations. For example,
that's the point.
When talking with the Root, he said, you know what, you want to talk reparations, you want to talk elevating the status of the African-American. By 2030, it's believed the average African-American in America will have a 0 net worth. I am suggesting we put $12,000 a month of net worth, and then so on and so forth. When people complain about Medicare for All, he'll say, you want to know what? The problem with our medical system is that companies and small businesses feel the burden to give that medical care. So when I give the UBI to people, there will all of a sudden be this lifted burden. You know, I think he hasn't come out and said, oh, Medicare for All, and if you don't like it, you're racist, just like Trump. He hasn't done that.
But I'm not saying, what I'm saying is, as you just pointed out, exactly, he responds to every single question. Well, you see, a UBI would help address that.
Because he's smart.
But what I'm saying is that leads to headlines like this where people think that's all he talks about. I heard him talk twice, and all he said was UBI.
So you think this is an honest mistake
or
a fair representation of Andrew Yang's platform?
No, but what I'm saying is...
there is obvious malice behind this headline.
What I'm saying is the less time he spends highlighting he does have other kind of smart things he believes and he wants to get through, and he focuses so much on UBI, it leaves the door open for him to be characterized as just the handout guy. He's supposed to give you money. He's buying votes. It leaves that door open.
So you blame Andrew Yang. You are victim shaming.
Victim
you know what
shaming.
I'm saying?
You're
victim shaming. Andrew Yang is the victim of a biased media.
I'm being critical on this end where I think maybe they've done too good of a job getting the UBI thing across. And it's gotten to the point now where he's kind of getting... I've heard people refer to him...
Too good of a job.
I've heard people refer to him online as, he's that one-trick pony. He's supposed to give you money. I'm like, well, not really. He actually has a lot of other stuff he talks about, or doesn't talk about, but he believes in, posted on his website. But it's a good point that he doesn't necessarily talk about it. He does say he believes in this stuff, but you don't see him coming out and saying, hey, by the way, the X, Y, and Z is also important. A little bit... like you said, he brings everything back to UBI, so I could see why some people would just say he's the UBI guy.
Okay, I think we just figured out the name of the thumbnail for this video. Is Andrew Yang a one-trick pony, or is he being misrepresented by the media? I'll tell you right now, I think he is being misrepresented by the media because our media is the most corrupt fourth branch of government the U.S. population has ever seen, especially in the past decade. And he is not their guy, top 2 establishment DNC nominee. Therefore, he will get lampooned and he will get misrepresented as best they can without being blatant until the cows come home. I am outie. Do you have anything else to say before
I do think that it is fair to point out that the Andrew Yang campaign has done maybe perhaps such a good job of overplaying UBI and has led this. It's opened the door for people to criticize him as that person. Yes.
Okay. We want to know what you guys think.
That's what I think.
So everybody, please, do you think Andrew Yang has actually kind of become a one-trick pony? And I'm open to the idea that maybe
isn't one, but he represents himself as one.
That's what I mean.
Yes.
Has he misrepresented himself as a one-trick pony, or do you think the media is actually misrepresenting him purposefully or non-purposefully? Please let us know below. Your comments mean a lot. Me and Cody still try and respond to all of them. If you haven't contributed to our channel yet, you want to contribute, please check out the PayPal link below. The hats are coming. The merch is coming. We love you guys. We will see you in the next video. This is Problem Solver Politics.